What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video I want to talk about the very, very sad, disappointing news that The Last of Us Part 2 has been delayed. So I want to give my kind of analysis, talk about this news as breaking news, really. If you guys hadn't heard it before, well, that's basically what's happened is The Last of Us Part 2 has been indefinitely delayed, as well as actually Iron Man VR. That's not to kind of like shun Iron Man or put it to the side, because that actually is also a solid game. I don't think that's obviously like the biggest game in the world, but that game has been delayed indefinitely as well. But another part of this video I want to talk about is how Ghost of Tsushima absolutely will be the next one to go, really. I think we're honestly only a couple days, maybe a couple weeks at the most away from getting that announcement as well. And this, again, this really, really sucks. Now, my cousin Tyler, he's been predicting this actually for a while. And then a few weeks ago, I made the video talking about it, The Last of Us Part 2, will it be delayed? And it got a lot of positive reception. And I think the overall idea was like, we absolutely don't want it to be delayed. We don't really see a reason. And the thing that's interesting with this delay is it's Jason Schreier recently came out. So Sony came out, Naughty Dog came out. They all have their own, like press releases. Naughty Dog obviously says like, hey, we're super disappointed. We're super sorry about this. And they talked about how they're going to be able to use this extra time to continue to polish stuff up. Jason Schreier published something that said from his inside sources at Naughty Dog, the game is just about done. So that is true. I mean, so the game is pretty much finished. It was probably going to go gold very, very soon. They're just going to use this extra time now, basically, to just polish up the game, make it even better. I'll be interested to see how this influences the multiplayer, because remember, the multiplayer mode is going to be completely separate, basically its own game, right? And the longer that The Last of Us Part 2 gets delayed, the closer it would end up being to the multiplayer. So we'll have to see how all of that ends up. Now, I don't think they'll actually end up lining up. I don't think The Last of Us Part 2 will get delayed all that much, and I think the factions mode probably wouldn't be ready until like the late fall, probably like in that holiday season. So I don't necessarily think that'll completely line up, but that is definitely something to look for. But he said in his article, or from his inside sources at Naughty Dog, that it is purely the economics of it. Now, I'm not exactly sure, but I'm not going to pretend to know more than they do, right? Obviously Naughty Dog, obviously Sony specifically, they know what they're doing. They see numbers that we can't see, or they know numbers that we don't know, those things as well too. And they obviously are afraid of something. Now, obviously, the world is in a bit of a crisis situation right now, right? We've gone over it in the past. I don't say the words. I don't trust YouTube, and YouTube is pretty, not the greatest with the words, basically what's going on. But the world is in quite a pickle right now. But what we've seen recently are games releasing without really problems. Now, there are. I shouldn't say without any problems, because the problems lie in the physical releases, right? And we've seen that with every single game pretty much over the last 3 weeks. We go back to, I don't know if Nioh 2 had the problem. I honestly feel like Nioh 2 didn't have the problem, but definitely Doom Eternal, Animal Crossing, Resident Evil 3's remake, and Final Fantasy 7 as the newest one are all having the issue of you're not going to get the game day one if you are getting it physically. Now, I've talked about this in different videos. I actually am like an example of this. I was going to get 3 of the 4, Doom, Animal Crossing, and Final Fantasy. I had all pre-ordered on Amazon coming to my house physical, right? And then obviously I got the notice, just like everybody else did, that was going to get delayed, and then I had to cancel all 3 and just buy them on the like the stores, right? PlayStation Store, Nintendo Store. I had to do that. So as those things started to happen, it did start to become more and more clear that, like, all right, well, The Last of Us is May 29th. That's a very long time away still, and especially in what the world is going through, a lot can change in that time. And that's part of the reason why it sucks even more, is even if things start to get a little bit better in early May, can you reverse this decision? I don't honestly feel like you can reverse this decision that quickly. I feel like it takes a big leap to say, nope, we're doing it. We're delaying it. We don't even know till when yet, but we are delaying it. And even though things could very well be a lot better by the end of May, and maybe physical copies would be able to get out there faster and, on day one, I understand it. I guess from their perspective, it's a thing of like, well, how many people are buying it physical? And I guess from their end, they might see a lot of people have pre-ordered The Last of Us Part 2 physically. GameStop, Best Buy, Walmart, Target, like all these things. Maybe they're expecting a lot of sales, Amazon, right? I feel like that has to be it, because one of the things both Naughty Dog and Sony said is that they really want everybody to be able to play this game at the same time. They don't want people to get it early. We've seen that with Final Fantasy VII, right? Some people already have Final Fantasy VII much earlier than they were going to because of all this stuff going on. They had to ship the copies early, which is fine for those people. I don't think they're complaining, but I understand it from the developer, from the publisher point of view. So I do get it. They must not feel comfortable letting people play it digitally when not everybody can do that. And with a game as big as The Last of Us Part 2, I guess Iron Man kind of just comes along for the ride, right? But a game as big as The Last of Us Part 2, they don't want to do that. I'm sure they expected to sell 10, 15, maybe even 20 million copies. I wouldn't blame them. So again, I understand. Now, how does this affect Ghost of Tsushima? Well, the reason I believe, and I think probably, I would assume, a lot of people are going to follow me on this one, I think the reason that it's delayed indefinitely is because they're right now probably going to look to the end of June to do it. I don't think, and like I said in the beginning of this video, I don't think this is a massive delay. I truly don't. While they said it, and they said it's delayed indefinitely, and that definitely sounds really bad, at the end of the day, I really don't think it is, because you still have to think of the PS5. You still have to think of just the fall time in general. I don't think The Last of Us Part 2 is like going to be that fall game. I really don't. I feel like the plan now internally at Sony is you delay Ghost of Tsushima, because here's the deal. You don't have to delay Ghost of Tsushima, but look at what the movie industry is doing. And I understand the gaming and movie industry are very, very different. They're both being affected by this, and they're both being affected pretty differently. So, but I understand they're not the same. But look, with movies, what you're seeing a lot of now, right, is movies that are even kind of further away. They're getting delayed. And then what does that do to other movies in the the production companies like Arsenal? They have to move them as well. So a production company, you just pick one like Paramount, let's say, they are not only delaying movies that are coming out soon, but because they're moving them to different areas of the year, of next year, they have to move movies that were already there. And again, for the movie industry, you know so much further out, right? Movies, 1, 2, 3 years ahead of time that they're coming. So you can literally just move one to the next spot and keep on going. For gaming, it's a little bit different, but ironically, this situation is pretty much the same, because they're both from Sony, and you don't want them releasing too close to each other. You definitely can't have them release in the same month, let alone the same week or same day, right? It absolutely will not happen. So what happens? Well, The Last of Us Part 2, I think, is the priority. End of June is a really good time to release games. We talked about it a lot. We talked about it, why I think that's a good spot for Ghost of Tsushima. Remember, I predicted Ghost of Tsushima would either come out late June or late August. Well, here's what I'm now predicting, is I may end up being right in the worst kind of way. I don't want to be right in this way, but I feel like what's going to happen now is Ghost of Tsushima will be delayed indefinitely. The Last of Us Part 2, especially if, say, in 2-3 weeks, things start to at least go the other way, right? Things start to get better. The Last of Us Part 2, I think, can safely say, okay, we're going to come out. Ghost of Tsushima, I believe, is June 26th, right? Let's put The Last of Us Part 2 right there. So we're just going to replace Ghost of Tsushima with The Last of Us Part 2. Ghost of Tsushima will come out late August, maybe September. The problem with September is you already have Marvel's Avengers, and you already have Cyberpunk. And I understand they're not, obviously, neither of those are Sony-owned games, but they're both very big games in their own right. You don't want Ghost of Tsushima. I think you wouldn't want it that close. So I think late August, maybe like the third week in August, makes a lot of sense. Games come out in August all the time. It's normally like Madden's time. There's also just generally a lot more games that come out in August. I think, honestly, that should be the plan. Even put Ghost of Tsushima like late September, early October. I really don't think it's going to hurt anybody. We're getting even closer, honestly, to the sad realization that although they keep saying the PS5, Xbox Series X aren't getting delayed, I really think we're only, again, a matter of weeks, maybe months at the latest, of hearing that we have to delay those consoles. There's not going to be enough of them. People are going to have to spend way more money than we would ever intend them to spend. That's a completely different discussion, and I'll make that video very, very soon on the channel. So I don't really even even think you have to worry about next gen in the fall, but I really think that's going to be the plan. I think the reason that The Last of Us is indefinite. Now, you could say, okay, well, Iron Man is indefinite too. Yeah, I mean, they were going to put Iron Man out like 2 weeks before The Last of Us, but Iron Man is a VR game. It's a very different kind. It doesn't, I really don't think it really affects it. I don't really know why they made it indefinite. Just kind of put it in just put it in like the middle or beginning of June, and you're pretty much fine. But I really do think the reason The Last of Us is an indefinite delay, that they didn't give a new date for it, is because they're going to say very, very soon that Ghost of Tsushima is also delayed. Again, maybe they'll say that in a couple weeks. Maybe they can do it 2 different ways, but I think what maybe would be a pretty cool thing, like in all of this disappointment, all of this, making people upset, which again, it's nobody's fault. It's absolutely nobody's fault, but everybody is kind of upset. But I think what they could do to help a little bit is if in a few weeks they say, hey, Ghost of Tsushima is delayed, but here's the good news. The Last of Us Part 2 is replacing it. That may look weird to some people, but again, honestly, think about it in the movie industry, think about it in the gaming industry, it makes a lot of sense. You're just replacing one of your own published titles with another. You move the second one a little bit later because, again, it seems, The Last of Us Part 2 was done first. It was going to be done first. It was going to be ready a month before Ghost of Tsushima. And also, again, just like Naughty Dog has said, it just gives them time to work on more stuff. They could use more polishing time for The Last of Us. I'm sure Sucker Punch could use the time to continue to make Ghost of Tsushima better. So, it's a win-win. It sucks in terms of us getting it. Obviously, us not now getting it at the end of May. And that truly is that really, really does suck, to be completely honest with you. But I really don't think it's going to be delayed more than a month or so. It can't come out in July. I really don't see games releasing in July, even though all these games are being delayed. And then when it comes to August, yeah, that's a possibility. Maybe that's something they do. Maybe The Last of Us comes out in August and then Ghost of Tsushima comes out in like October. That would be a much later delay. That would be maybe like the worst case scenario in my opinion, but I'm hoping it's only like, for The Last of Us at least, I'm hoping it's only around a month. So guys, let me know in the comments below, what do you think? Are you disappointed that The Last of Us Part 2 got delayed? When do you think its new release date will be? Do you think Ghost of Tsushima will get delayed? When do you think that would come out? All of those things, let me know in the comments below. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel, Podcast Now, and hit that bell icon so you guys know when these videos go up, and we'll continue covering these games whenever they come out. Whenever they get a new release date, we'll cover it on this channel as well, okay? So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all on the next video.